Welcome to The Deep Dive. We're the show that takes a whole stack of sources and boils them down to the most important bits of knowledge and insight for you. Today we're embarking on a deep dive into, well, one of fantasy's most iconic and beloved characters. A figure you definitely know, synonymous with wisdom, with courage. You know the gray beard, you know the staff, maybe some famous lines, but do you truly understand the immense scope of Gandalf's being?
Yeah. Today, our mission is really to journey far beyond just the familiar stuff. We want to delve into the foundational lore that reveals his true nature, his origins, and honestly, the profound impact he had. We'll trace his existence from way back, like before Middle-earth itself, all the way through his trials and to his ultimate fate. Our sources for this include some really great character histories from channels like Men of the West, The Broken Sword, and Nerd of the Rings. Plus, we've got a comparative analysis from Screen Rant, which really highlights some fascinating differences between the books and the films.
Right, so get ready to maybe have your understanding of this legendary wizard expanded quite a bit. Okay, let's unpack this. Our journey starts way before Middle-earth, in a time and place far more ancient, with a being known not as Gandalf, but as Olorin. He was one of the Ainur, which literally means the Holy Ones. These are angelic spirits brought into existence by the thought of Eru Ilúvatar, who is essentially the creator of all in Tolkien's Legendarium. Olorin, along with others who would become the mighty Valar and the Lesser Maia, actually participated in the music of the Ainur. They literally helped sing the world into being.
Wow, that's such a powerful image, isn't it? Just thinking of him as fundamentally part of creation's song, it really makes you wonder, how does that angelic origin, being one of these Maia, how does that fundamentally shape his power and his purpose later in Middle-earth? It's got to be more than just making him stronger, right?
It's absolutely crucial. So upon descending into Arda, that's the world as we know it, Olorin became a Maia, an incredibly powerful spirit, actually similar in nature to Sauron, believe it or not, though obviously vastly different in alignment. He served several of the Valar, including Manwë, the king of Arda, and Varda, the Stark Queen. But it was his time spent with Nienna, the Lady of Pity and Mourning, that truly honed his character. It was from her that he learned this profound pity and patience, which, as you know, become such hallmarks of his later actions. His core power wasn't really in like brute force or overt command. It was in advice, inspiration, and kindling hope in others. He even carried the essence of the secret fire, which is like the divine flame of creation itself, embodying existence and independent will.
So he wasn't about dominating people or these huge displays of power. It was much more subtle influence, right? Like lighting fires in the hearts of others, as you said. It really shifts that typical wizard archetype, doesn't it? And he even walked unseen among the elves, giving them fair visions and wisdom. That's such a fascinating contrast to how we often see powerful characters portrayed, just showing up and blasting things.
Indeed. And this brings us logically to his arrival in Middle-earth. So, in the early Third Age, around the year 1000, the Valar were watching Sauron's shadow grow again. They convened a council and decided to send 5 emissaries, known as the Istari, or wizards, to combat this darkness. Their mission was very clear: aid the free peoples with wisdom and counsel. Importantly, they were to appear as frail old men, but possess immense underlying strength.
And Olorin, the future Gandalf, he was one of them. I'm always fascinated by his initial reluctance to go. What does that tell us about his character, especially when you contrast him with Saruman, for instance?
Yeah, his reluctance is actually a really profound insight into his humility. Manwë specifically asked for Olorin, knowing he still had this deep love for the elves remaining in Middle-earth. But Olorin, he felt too weak. He was genuinely afraid of Sauron's might, and Manwë's response was just vital. But that was all the more reason he should go. This humility, this self-awareness of his own vulnerability, it was actually his greatest strength. It stopped him from seeking power for himself, which is the very flaw that, well, later corrupted Saruman. So when he arrived at Mithrandir, the Grey Havens, he took the form we know best: an old man, white hair, long beard, a blue hat in the books, and a gray cloak. And it was here that he started picking up the many names he'd be known by. Gandalf by the Men of the North, Mithrandir by the Elves, which means Grey Pilgrim or Grey Wanderer, and Tharkun by the Dwarves, meaning Greyman or Staffman.
It's such a classic fantasy trope, isn't it? The unassuming old man who holds immense power. But his reluctance just adds such a human kind of relatable layer to it.
Right.
And speaking of power, it's right there at the Grey Havens that he gets one of the most significant items in his whole arsenal, right?
Yeah, he does, yeah. Upon his arrival, Círdan the Shipwright, who's the most farsighted of all the Eldar, immediately recognized Gandalf's true Maia nature. He sensed that secret fire within him. Now, Círdan held Narya, the Ring of Fire, one of the 3 elven rings of power, and he immediately gifted it to Gandalf. He understood with his foresight that Gandalf would have a greater need of it in the coming struggles against evil. And this gesture, according to our sources, actually stirred some early jealousy in Saruman and other Istari, who saw it as a bit of a slight against his own assumed leadership. Now, unlike Saruman, who pretty quickly settled into the fortress of Isengard, Gandalf never really stayed rooted in one place. He journeyed really widely across the Westlands, from the ancient kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor, always befriending all sorts of folk in times of need. His spirit was described as eager and swift, and his power, which was enhanced by Narya, allowed him to counter the fire that devours Sauron's influence with a fire that kindles hope.
He really did embody that wandering sage archetype, didn't he? Always there when you needed him most, but never tied down by, property or status or wanting a big tower. It's fascinating how his whole way of operating was about movement and making connections.
And it was during these wanderings that Gandalf made a particularly crucial connection. He encountered and befriended the hobbits in the Shire. He just loved their humble nature, their resilience, their unique qualities. He even aided them directly during the really grueling long winter of 2758 of the Third Age. He witnessed their remarkable courage, their pity, and their love for each other firsthand. Our sources really emphasize that alone among the wise, Gandalf gave special thought to hobbits. He discerned their hidden strengths, these qualities that would prove absolutely pivotal later on. And of course, he became known for his fantastical stories and, yes, his spectacular fireworks displays at their parties.
So he saw the potential in the simple folk that pretty much everyone else just dismissed. This care for the unassuming, it just seems to be such a consistent thread in his story, right?
Yeah.
But his deeper mission, that was always present too, wasn't it?
Always. Over the centuries, around 1100 TA, the Istari and the Elves started noticing this evil shadow growing in Greenwood, which was later aptly renamed Mirkwood. This darkness was centered on the fortress of Dol Guldur. Gandalf investigated back in 2063, but the entity, who was then known only as the Necromancer, fled before him. It wasn't until a much later secretive return in 2850 that Gandalf found King Thrain II, Thorin's father, dying in the dungeons. And it was then he finally confirmed his worst fear. The Necromancer was indeed Sauron himself, returned. He immediately reported this terrifying discovery, to the White Council, urging them to take immediate action. Now, the White Council, this gathering of the wisest and most powerful beings left in Middle-earth, was formally set up in 2463 TA Galadriel, recognizing Gandalf's profound wisdom and his unwavering spirit, actually wished for him to be appointed as its head. But Gandalf, true to his nature, humbly declined. He preferred to remain unrooted, free to wander. And consequently, Saruman, because of his vast knowledge and well-perceived authority, took the position of leader.
Wow, the internal politics of the White Council are just captivating here. You've got Galadriel backing Gandalf and Saruman's inherent jealousy already brewing, which leads him to deliberately hold the council back. It speaks volumes about that totally contrasting approaches to power, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Saruman, whose mind was already secretly turning towards finding the One Ring for himself, consistently delayed any decisive action against Sauron. This was despite Gandalf's repeated urgent counsel. Arguments between them often highlighted Gandalf's unique care for, quote, simple folk, like the hobbits, which Saruman just derided as a waste of time. It really showcases this fundamental difference in their values. Gandalf's belief in the strength of the humble versus Saruman's naked pursuit of power and control. So this escalating concern about Sauron, combined with the more immediate threat of Smaug the dragon up north, compelled Gandalf to orchestrate the quest of Erebor in 2941 TA. He met Thorin Oakenshield purely by chance in Bree, or maybe not chance, and seeing this crucial, perhaps divinely appointed opportunity, he famously persuaded Bilbo Baggins to join the company as their burglar. Gandalf accompanied them for a pretty significant part of the journey, proving essential in saving them from trolls, guiding them through Goblin Town, which is where he found his iconic sword, Glamdring, and forging that lasting friendship with the Great Eagles.
The Hobbit adventure is just so beloved, and it's incredible to see how Gandalf was playing this much deeper, longer game all along. It's almost like, yeah, all roads lead back to those unassuming hobbits and their surprising capacity for courage and, well, just doing the right thing.
It truly does seem that way. After leaving the company near Mirkwood, Gandalf finally succeeded in convincing the White Council to attack Dol Guldur. Though, it's noted Saruman only agreed when he realized Sauron had begun searching the river Anduin for the ring. A search he wanted to conduct himself, basically. Still, they managed to drive Sauron out, forcing him to flee back to Mordor. And then Gandalf played that crucial role in uniting elves, dwarves, and men against the orcs and wargs at the climactic Battle of Five Armies. Okay, so as the Third Age was drawing towards its close, Gandalf's focus just intensified entirely on the growing shadow of Sauron. He was continuously monitoring the situation. He befriended Aragorn during this time, kept a particularly close eye on Bilbo and Frodo Baggins, noting the ring's unnatural effect on Bilbo over the decades. He spent years, literally years, meticulously searching for Gollum and examining ancient scrolls and records to confirm his darkest suspicions.
Right, that's where it gets really pivotal, isn't it? He didn't just suspect about the ring, he literally hunted Gollum across huge parts of Middle-earth, using all his profound knowledge and subtle influence just to confirm its sinister history. I mean, talk about dedication.
By 3018 TA, Gandalf confirmed it. Bilbo's simple magic ring was in fact the One Ring of Sauron. He returned to the Shire, advised Frodo on the critical importance of showing pity towards Gollum, remember that, and meticulously planned for Frodo to take the ring to Rivendell. However, his own path got dramatically diverted. He ran into Radagast the Brown, another wizard, who delivered an urgent summons from Saruman. Gandalf immediately made for Isengard. And it was there that Saruman revealed his terrifying treachery, trying to force Gandalf to join him in seeking power. When Gandalf refused, flat out, he was imprisoned atop the Tower of Orthanc for over 2 months. It was Gwaihir, the Lord of the Eagles, who bravely rescued him in the nick of time. He then made his way eventually to Rohan, acquiring his magnificent horse, Shadowfax, a creature of almost peerless speed and loyalty, one of the Miaras.
Oh man, this entire sequence, right. From his desperate imprisonment, that escape, and then leading up to the epic confrontation in Moria, that's what defines Gandalf for so many of us. And that line, "You shall not pass," seriously, is there a more iconic line in all of fantasy? It's just pure, unadulterated defiance against overwhelming darkness.
It is truly a legendary moment, a testament to his unwavering will and his sense of duty. So, after escaping Isengard, he eventually made it to Rivendell, just in time for the Council of Elrond, where the Fellowship of the Ring was formed. Gandalf led them, choosing to brave the dark ruins of Moria when other paths were blocked by snow or spies. And it was there, deep beneath the mountains, that the Fellowship encountered Durin's Bane, a Balrog of Morgoth, another Maia, just like Gandalf and Sauron, but a fallen spirit of fire from ancient times, now utterly corrupted. Our sources describe Gandalf's defiance with the exact words, "I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor. You cannot pass. The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udun. Go back to the shadow." This proclamation asserted his true identity, a servant of Iluvatar, a wielder of divine light, and directly challenged the Balrog, his corrupted peer from an earlier age. He broke the bridge, sending the Balrog plummeting into the abyss, but the creature's whip lashed out and ensnared him, dragging him down too.
Such a sacrifice, a fall into darkness, but crucially, not an end. It really makes you think about the nature of true defeat, doesn't it? Can you really be defeated if you stand for something?
Indeed. They battled, Gandalf and the Balrog, for 8 grueling days, from the deepest foundations of stone in Moria all the way up to the highest, icy peak of the Endless Stair, Zaraxigil. And it was there, on the mountaintop, that Gandalf finally threw down his foe. But this monumental effort, this expenditure of all his power, led to Gandalf's death as the Grey Wizard. His body lay broken on the peak. But that was not the end, because his task wasn't yet complete, and he was the only one of the Istari who had remained true to his original mission of aiding the Free Peoples without seeking power for himself. So Eru Iluvatar himself intervened. He sent Gandalf back, resurrected as Gandalf the White, imbued with greater access to his true underlying Maia power.
Okay, so if he was already incredibly powerful as Gandalf the Grey, what does this rebirth as Gandalf the White truly signify? Was it just like a power-up in the video game, or is it something more profound than that?
It seems to have been a profound transformation, yeah. He was described later as being quicker to laughter and quicker to anger, more decisive perhaps, able to reveal more of his inherent power and authority when needed. Gwaihir, the Eagle Lord, again rescued him, this time from the mountain peak, and carried him to Lothlorien. There Galadriel clothed him in new white robes and gave him a new white staff, symbolizing his elevated status and renewed purpose. He then sought out Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli in Fangorn Forest, revealing his resurrection much to their shock and awe. He rode with them to Edoras, and there he dramatically freed King Theoden from Grima Wormtongue's poisonous influence, literally revitalizing the king and the spirit of Rohan, ultimately leading them to war and the crucial victory at Helm's Deep.
And the contrast here with Saruman is just so stark, isn't it? Gandalf's power, even in this enhanced white form, it's still all about guidance, inspiration, kindling hope in others, whereas Saruman's power just degenerated completely into control, subjugation, and destruction. It really highlights that core difference in their approaches, their fundamental choices.
Precisely. And Gandalf then confronted Saruman directly at Isengard. He unequivocally refused Saruman's twisted offer of forgiveness or alliance and emphatically cast him out of the Order of Wizards, literally breaking his staff with just a word. This was a stark departure from the film's more physical telekinetic brawl. It really emphasizes Gandalf's immense spiritual authority and divine backing in the books. It wasn't a fight between equals anymore. Gandalf then played an absolutely decisive leading role in the final strategies of the War of the Ring. At the last debate among the captains of the West, he advised them to march on the Black Gate of Mordor. It was a desperate gamble, designed specifically to draw Sauron's eye and forces away from Frodo's perilous path into Mordor with the ring. This incredibly audacious plan, combined with Frodo's profound pity towards Gollum. A pity, remember, that Gandalf had advised from the very beginning, ultimately led to the destruction of the One Ring and Sauron's final downfall.
Beyond his more overt displays of power, like, battling Balrogs and breaking staffs, Gandalf possessed these subtle yet profound abilities that truly define him as a sage, I think. He had this remarkable prophetic insight, didn't he? Foreshadowing Aragorn's coming as King Elisar, recognizing the crucial roles of both hobbits and Gollum right from the start. And he also displayed instances of telepathy, like notably reading Frodo's mind in Rivendell, though he immediately apologized, which shows his restraint and respect for others' privacy, even with that power.
Yeah, it's those understated powers that make him so compelling, I agree. Knowing he had these quieter abilities like telepathy and foresight, it just paints a picture of a truly deep, intuitive sage, not just some flashy spellcaster throwing fireballs. And he also exhibited telekinesis on occasion, like effortlessly disarming Gimli, Aragorn, and even Denethor with just a mere gesture when they threatened him or Frodo. As the wielder of the Flame of Valinor, remember that direct connection to the secret fire of LOTR, his spiritual fire manifested not usually as consuming flames, but as inspiration, as light igniting courage in others. This connection also extended to a sort of metaphorical and sometimes maybe literal relationship with the sun. He often appeared or acted decisively at sunrise, symbolizing hope driving away the darkness.
That imagery, him being connected to the sun like a beacon of hope literally pushing back the creeping shadows. It's just beautiful and so fitting for his role, isn't it? It really underscores that his strength wasn't just physical or magical, but deeply spiritual and inspirational. It's like an aha moment.
And his leadership, fundamentally, was consistently built on humility and selflessness. He actively refused positions of overt power, like leading the White Council. He preferred to work without praise, often behind the scenes. His profound wisdom allowed him to discern precisely when to fight and when to, avoid conflict or use counsel instead. He embodied the idea that true strength isn't always about force, but about insight, guidance, and patience. Our sources even suggest he was co-equal and equal doubtless with Sauron in their beginnings as mayor. Just think about that. But his chosen path, the path of service and humility, made all the difference in the fate of Middle-earth. So, with the ultimate victory achieved, Gandalf, the Grey Pilgrim turned White Rider, performed one of his last major acts in Middle-earth. He crowned Aragorn as King Elisar. 2 years later, in the year 3021 of the Third Age, his mission well and truly complete, he embarked on his final journey. From the Grey Havens, he sailed west into the uttermost west, along with Frodo, Bilbo, Elrond, and Galadriel. And he was openly wearing Narya, the Ring of Fire, its purpose fulfilled. He returned to Oman, the Undying Lands. Once again, Aloran, the angelic being.
What an incredible arc that is. Seriously. From a reluctant angel to a wandering wizard, to the pivotal leader of the Free Peoples, and finally returning home, it really makes you rethink what power truly means in these stories, and maybe in our world too.
Absolutely. If you connect all the dots, nearly every significant victory against Sauron in the entire Third Age can be attributed, in some measure, large or small, to Gandalf. Through his profound wisdom, his compassionate counsel, his unwavering pity, and his deep, enduring love for the children of Ilúvatar elves and men, yes, but also hobbits and dwarves.
Yeah, it truly shows that Gandalf's journey, from that hesitant angel Olorin to the triumphant White Rider, exemplifies that real strength lies not in, wielding ultimate power for your own gain, but in courage, in compassion, and in that unwavering commitment to a cause far greater than yourself. His willingness to sacrifice himself, not once but twice really, his consistent choice of guidance over control, and his deep, genuine care for the humble, like the hobbits, that highlights precisely what ultimately leads to victory, even in the face of truly overwhelming darkness.
And this maybe raises an important question for you, our listener, to ponder. What secret fire, what inner spark lies within you, waiting to be wielded for good, even when, like Olorin, you might feel too weak or afraid?
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the incredible history and profound essence of Gandalf. We really hope you discovered some new insights and gained an even deeper appreciation for this truly, truly epic character.